Hey you guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today we're doing a little bit quicker video than normal. I've got a concept for you that if you're still struggling to catch winter bass is going to make a huge difference. We're going to talk about fishing the extremes and how to use it to your advantage in the coldest part of winter. Now, a few days ago, we did a video where I went out with the crankbait and caught a pile of fish and caught some really big fish. There are a lot of options in the heart of winter, but there are a lot of guys, you may be one of them, that don't enjoy power fishing. It doesn't matter that we're catching them on a crankbait or that we're catching them on an A-rig or we're spooning. It's not your fishing style. You prefer to fish slower. I understand that. There are a lot of people in that category. So what I want to talk about today is specifically for you. If you don't want to power fish, if you prefer to just go out, get on the bank, do some fishing, fishing the extremes will change your experience in winter. So what I mean by that is that you don't want to be in the middle. During the coldest part of the winter, if you're going out there and you're struggling, it's hard to get bit at all, you're blanking, you're not catching very many fish, don't play in the middle. Don't throw a Texas rig. Don't throw a big jig. Don't throw a bigger worm. If you're going to drop shot, don't throw a 6-inch worm, throw a little worm. So this concept is to go to both ends of the perspective. The idea being, most of the time when the water's that cold, you're only playing for a few bites a day at best. So you can go one way or the other way to get those few bites. Let's start on the big bait end of it. On the big bait end, again, you're only playing for a couple of bites a day. When the water's this cold and you're just barely creeping bottom. You guys saw it in a video a couple weeks ago. We went out and threw an 8-inch Huddleston, caught a couple fish for you. When you're doing this style of fishing, you're not trying to get a lot of bites, but you're trying to get the right bites. You're trying to get a giant bite. And even for a guy that doesn't like to power fish, if you don't want to crank or A-rig or any of those things, you can still do this. It's a harder cast, it's a heavy bait, but once it's on the bottom, I mean, it truly is finesse fishing. It truly is. It's so slow, so methodical. You just creep these baits along the bottom. That's all you do. Now, the extremes. This is not the time of year to throw a 4, a 5, a 6, or a 7-inch swim bait. Go big. If you're going to go for it, go big. Throw an 8-inch bait. Go bigger. Throw a 10-inch bait. You know, down in the video description, I'll leave you 3 or 4 of our favorite really big baits. But the idea, again, is that you're not going to get that many bites. So try to get the very biggest bite that you can get. Now, where you are in the country, this information will land for you differently. Here where we live, oftentimes, we bottom out right at the end of December. That is the coldest our water will get all year. And then it's a slow taper back from there. Other parts of the country, you guys bottom out in January or in February. So apply this information when it fits your water temperatures. But when you're at your coldest, that's when this matters. So that big bait, bigger is better, ultra slow. The reason bigger is better, you don't want to throw a 6-inch version of a Huddleston when you can throw the 8 or the 10, because the 8 or the 10 will draw a bass from farther. It literally has more drawing power. It will pull them to the bait. They're willing to swim farther to a bigger meal. So you're fishing more effectively with the bigger bait. You're actually going to get more bites on the big bait, not less bites. Keep that in mind. Now on the other end of the spectrum, let's talk about the finesse guy. If you're going the finesse route, and a lot of people do, this is a time of year where it's hard to get bit at all. Don't play in the middle. This is not the time. Again, not the time to be Texas rigging. Not the time to be shaking a 6 or a 7-inch worm. If you're going to finesse fish and just try to get a bite, you want to go small. The 2.8 Kitech, that tiny swim bait. on a little 1/8 ounce guppy head, just creeped on the bottom. We'll catch them when nothing else will catch them. If your fish are on more of that vertical structure, that Ned rig, you know, like bluff wall fishing, fishing a Ned rig on those little shelves and then letting it free fall. And then fishing on the shelf and then letting it free fall. Or if your fish are on ledges, just barely pull it. Let it sit. But that tiny little Ned rig, don't throw the bigger sizes, the smallest. Same thing with the drop shot. Again, not a 6 or 7 inch worm, a 3-inch worm, max a 4-inch worm. The goal here is just catch fish. You want a bait like this guy, that little smallie smasher that I just talk about because I fell in love with it this year. That's a bait where you can just flutter the rod tip. That's all you do. And that bait just sits there and wags. You don't want to give a bait too much action in that cold water. It's not natural. Tim has just talked about how to do this properly. He's way better at it than I am. But you don't want to give a finesse bait too much movement. It's not natural in that cold water. So just barely work them and then drop them. Barely work them. So a little bait like that that'll give you a little action and then settle is perfect. But again, nowhere in the middle. When we get to the middle of winter and you're struggling and you don't want to power fish, go one way or the other, but go all the way, and that is where you will find your best success. Winter will be over before you know it. Springtime is coming, don't worry. But while you're in the middle of it, take these tips, apply them to your fishing, and you will see a difference. Guys, I hope this helps you. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.